Good morning, everyone. So for our meeting today, we'll talk about Chapter 3 of your qualitative research. So, kamusta kayong lahat? How are you all doing? I hope that you have already, of course, accomplished your Chapter 1, which contains the introduction, the background of the study, the statement of the problem, and later on, you need to add the significance of the study, the scope and delimitation, the definition of terms. And then chapter 2, which is the review of related literature, which I've asked you to create your RRL answer grid and the required number of journal articles, thesis, or dissertation that you need to put in your grid is around 20 or more journal articles. Now, I've asked some of you to already translate your RRL answer grid into the paragraph form, especially those na kailangan na. I allowed some na may 10, but I have asked them to add more kasi when you translate them into the paragraph form, that would roughly be just around 3 to 5 pages. Now, there are no minimum required number of pages for your review of related literature, but normally in a thesis, that would be like 10 or more pages. Okay? So, yung iba naman sa inyo, 15 to 20, I've asked you already to translate into the paragraph form. Now, after your RRL in paragraph form, you need to create your synthesis. It's a summary of all, but you need to be able to put there the research gaps. Now, again, what are research gaps? These are things that you have seen in your literature that was not made mention that is very important. Research gaps are things that might be able to answer your research questions, and you need to be able to put also your own opinion or critique later on the synthesis part. Don't forget the APA style in doing the synthesis. That's roughly around 1 or 2 pages. After your synthesis, you need to create your theoretical or conceptual framework. Again, I repeat, when you talk about theoretical framework, theories needed to back up or foundation of your literature. How many theories would you need? That will depend. Some may have 1, some 3, some 5, but make sure to define and describe each of the theories with citation. And the last paragraph must be an explanation of the connection of the theories to your study or to your research. And then that would finish your chapter 2. I think you needed to submit the final copy of your chapter 2 by Friday. That's the deadline that I was able to have set. And then by Monday would already be a draft of your chapter 3. And so we will talk about today an important part of doing your qualitative research, which is the chapter 3 or the methodologies or methodology. Now, again, when we talk about qualitative research, the methodology focuses on exploring and trying to understand the complex phenomena through non-numerical data. I repeat, non-numerical data. You will not be using measurements or statistical tools in trying to understand later on your data. So in the chapter 3 of your research study, you as a researcher would need to explain the methodology that you will be using to conduct your study. Now, this would include data collection and the analysis techniques that you will be using. So here are some of the qualitative research methodologies that need to be seen in your chapter 3. Of course, number 1, you need to be able to put your interviews, okay? Interview siyan for qualitative research. Now, you as a researcher would have to ask questions to participants to gather information about their very own experiences, their opinions, even their attitudes. And when you talk about interviews, it can be structured to semi-structured or unstructured. So in your case, you will have to use a semi-structured interview. And you can also conduct focus groups. And it's a methodology of group of individuals brought together to discuss a particular topic or issue. Now, you as a researcher will be the moderator of the discussion, and you will have to take notes on the participants' responses. Ang pangatlo, research methodology is observations. Now, this would involve you as a researcher observing participants in their natural environment. Now, in their natural environment, to gather the data about their behavior, yung interactions nila, and their very own experiences. And observations can also be structured and unstructured. Now, the fourth one would be, of course, the case studies. Now, this methodology involves a depth analysis of a particular case or situation, often involving just a single person or a group or an organization. We also have the content analysis. This methodology involves analyzing the written or the verbal data to identify pattern or themes. So in your case, you will be doing a content analysis, which would involve trying to see the patterns and themes that you will be getting later on in your data. So content analysis can be used to analyze your interview transcripts, the written documents that you will be collecting, and the social media posts. And of course, the grounded theory. Ito, I will not ask you yet to do this one because mahirap ito. Now, you as a researcher would develop a theory based on the data collected during your study. And the theory is grounded in the data and emerges through a process of constant comparison and analysis. So that's a grounded theory. So in your chapter 3, the researcher should explain why the chosen methodology is appropriate for the research question and the research design. Now, the researcher should also explain the sampling strategy, which we're going to talk about later on, the data collection procedures, and the data analysis techniques that you will be using in your study. Now, remember the outline, okay, of the common sections found in your methodology. So there should be number 1, tandaan nyo to, please remember, there should be an introduction. Okay, no need, there should be a brief introduction of your chapter 3, which is the methodology. Okay, so paano nyo lalagyan yun? So there should be a paragraph about below, kunyari, chapter 3 methodology. You have to briefly introduce the research question and the purpose of the methodology. So again, you have to briefly introduce the research questions and the purpose of your methodology, and you have to provide an overview of the qualitative research approach. And then you proceed later on to the research design and methodology. This time, you have to describe the research design. Ano bang ginamit mo? Phenomenology, ethnography, case study. Who is your author? Si Robert Ian ba yan? For case study, si Spradley ba yan? For ethnography, si Kolaisi ba yan? Okay? Si Kolaisi ba yan ng phenomenology? You have to be able to indicate kung sino yun. Okay? Then you have to explain the rationale for choosing that particular research design and how it is appropriate for your research question. So the detail the methodology. Okay? Ano ba i-detail mo yung methodology mo to be used? Ano, interviews ba, focus group discussion, observations. Then the third part will be your sampling strategy. Now here, you have to describe the population and the sampling strategy to be used. Kunyari, ano ba yan? Snowball sampling, purposive sampling. But in your case as qualitative, my recommendation is that you have to use purposive sampling. So you have next is you have to explain how the sample will be selected and why was it a representative of that particular population. So you have to do a citation for that. And then the fourth part would be the data collection procedure. Now you have to describe the procedure used to collect the data. Interview ba yan? Interview protocol ba yan? Observation, and detail how the data was recorded and stored. So in the data collection procedure or data gathering procedure, yung sinabi ko sa inyo, you have to create a table. Dalawang columns yun. The first column would be the research questions, and the second column would be the data the data collection data collection method. So kung interview ba yan, you're going to get interview ba yan, questionnaire ba yan, and below the table, you have to explain what your table is all about. The fifth part after the data collection procedure would be your data analysis techniques. So ito naman, again, I told you your data analysis techniques, this will have to be author specific. Kung sino yung author nyo, they will be able to explain your data analysis technique, plus the fact that you will be using content analysis. Okay? Tandaan niyo yung content analysis, mag-cite na lang kayo of what it is. So you have to describe the process used to analyze the data, thematic analysis and content analysis, or thematic or content analysis. Then you have to explain how the data was coded and categorized. Itong explanation ng data on how it was coded and categorized, again, you will have to be author specific about this one. And then, merong part dito which normally hindi naman nilalagay, it's called the quality assurance. So you have to detail how the research was rigorously conducted, okay, the credibility, dependability, or the conformability. You have to describe steps taken to ensure the validity and reliability of the data analysis. So number 6 yun, it's called the quality assurance. And the 7th part, you have to include this also, is the ethical considerations. So you have to detail the ethical considerations that were taken into account. Meron ka bang informed consent or letter to your participants? There's confidentiality. And explain how the ethical considerations were addressed during the study. Okay? So I think yun lang yung mga important parts of your methodology. And your methodology chapter should provide a clear and comprehensive description of your research design. So your data collection procedures and your data analysis techniques used in the qualitative research study. So I'm not worried about this one kasi you would just have to describe yung gagawin yung methodology for your specific research. Let me just share to you a very short presentation of what I'm talking about. So research methodology. So it's a part of your thesis or your research, or it's called the recipe. So you have to describe the steps you took to conduct your research or design your project. How detailed should it be? And the reader should have enough information that he or she could replicate your research with the same or similar population and arrive at the same results. So you have to reintroduce your reader. Siyempre, binasa yung chapter 1 ninyo, lalo na yung chapter 2, mahaba yun. What is it again you are doing? So, yung purpose statement nyo, okay, your objective, a paragraph or 2. Normally, yan yung introduction that I was telling you earlier. Now, if the reader is interested in your methodology, he or she does not have to go back and forth to chapter 1 to revisit the purpose and objectives. So, palagi nyong tatandaan yan, ha? Reintroduce the reader. Now, again, what are the parts of your methodology, as made mentioned earlier? The type of your research, the design, the population, the sample and the sampling, data gathering procedure, the data analysis procedure. So the type of research project, syempre yung sa atin, qualitative, descriptive, experimental, historical, those are different type of research, but we'll focus on the qualitative research. So my design, survey to relation developmental, experimental studies, we will go to the survey design. So, kunyari, you'll be doing it in the school survey with teachers, students, administrators. The others are the different survey methods, job analysis, documentary analysis, public opinions, and community surveys. Some of you would be doing community surveys. And interrelationships, so case study, but yung causal and the correlational, that's for quantitative. Okay, so developmental studies, diyan sa inyo. Experimental, that's for quantitative. The data gathering procedure, the instrument development, I told you yung pag-create nyo ng table, research questions, and the data gathering procedures, kung anong, paano nyo kukolektahin yung data nyo with research question number 1. Questionnaire ba yan? Magsasurvey ba kayo? Etc. So, So you have the data gathering procedures, you have your interview, face-to-face via open-ended, follow-up questions, observation, ethnography, okay, watching, listening, recording, non-participatory. You have your instrument validation, okay? So ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina na quality assurance that you have to be able to put yung number 6 part yun, no? You have to detail how the research was rigorously conducted with credibility, dependability, and confirmability. You have to describe the steps taken to ensure the validity or the reliability of the data and the analysis. So importante yan, tatanungin din yan sa panel nyo. And of course, the description of your population. Who are your population? Who are your participants? Describe the subjects of your study. Okay, what characteristics do they share that includes them in your population of interest? Okay, total number for qualitative research 6 to 10 based on Crestwell. So ito yung sampling. I told you that you'll be using purposive sampling technique. So explain nyo yun, mag-cite kayo on what it is. Okay? Hindi na to. The data analysis procedure for quantitative STS. For qualitative, ito, thematic analysis or content analysis. Tandaan niyo yun, ha? Okay? I think that's it, no, for our meeting for today, talking about chapter 3 of your research. So don't forget the deadlines to be submitted. So later on, during your time, I'll be opening the Zoom for consultations. Thank you very much and have a good day.